We love you!
Hello and welcome to Tribe Talk, the Galway Hurling podcast, with me, Patrick Earley and David Connors, where each week we'll discuss and divulge all the goings-on in Galway hurling. We'll be taking an in-depth look at the club scene and of course focusing on inter-county, in this Shane O'Neill's first year at the helm, all of which we'll do in the company of some special guests and former Galway greats. So do come along and join us on Tribe Talk, Galway's dedicated hurling podcast.
Very good. Alright, welcome along to this week's show. Myself, Patrick Earley here, and along with David Connors again. We're here this week to preview the second round of the Senior and Intermediate Hurling Championships. So look, we the last couple of weeks, David, we've had big interviews to start off the show. I'm not sure the viewers are going to be too fussed to hear about your underage career with St. Thomas's, so we might tear straight into it.
Blow on, as they say. We'll try and get
we'll
an hour this time as well, just so we won't keep anyone half the day either. So
good stuff. We'll start off at the beginning, as they say. Senior A Group 1, Tommy Larkins against Tynagh. First game on Sunday at 1 o'clock in Ballinasloe. Initial thoughts there, David?
It's a great opportunity for Larkins, isn't it, really? They've probably all but through if they can get a result here, and they'll be looking over at the far side. And if Cappy win as well, they're out. So there'll be a chance to rest, which kind of the intense schedule as well. You could rest a few players and try out a few bits. But great opportunity. Should be a cracking game. Ballinasloe will really bring out the best in both of them, really. I think could kind of suit Larkins a small bit, really. I was kind of impressed with Tynagh the last day there as well, now, outside of a bit of poor, inaccurate shooting, as they say. I think they could give it a rattle as well, but it's hard not to look past Larkins, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And the way the groups are this year now with the 4 teams, it's something we're not really used to since, probably 5-6 years ago, since we've had that system in play. So, you're coming back from a defeat. Those teams that lost their first round, there's huge incentive there this weekend, and you could be in for some shocks off the back of that. You say Tynagh have to go out now. They have to get a win. Their season is hanging by a thread here. If they have to go out and try to get a result against Larkins to keep their season alive, so big pressure there, and interesting to see do they respond with a performance.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, in Tynagh in particular, a few of their heavy hitters didn't really produce really the last day. I'd say Shane Maloney, he was deadly accurate from place balls, but he was quiet and he was on the fringes and he was man marked well. So probably if Maloney's so important for Tynagh, if he's on fire, they're halfway there. Johnny Conroy was off, also very quiet. So that's two of their leading lights in attack that didn't really produce. And then you go back a bit further, and Pádraig Brehony's a match winner on his day as well. So you'd imagine he'll have a real good ding-dong battle there with the 3 Larkins midfielders. Say it'll be a real war zone in there. So if Pádraig Brehony can stamp his obvious quality over proceedings, you could potentially see an upset. I don't know. I just don't see it myself. I think Larkins they're too well set up, and they've probably that just extra bit of firepower, really. Between Conor Gardner, Ronan Murphy, Jason Flynn, there's scores there all over, and they've a nice inside line as well. Darren Duggan I'm really impressed with him. He's a young player, but plenty of bag loads of potential there. How do you see it going yourself?
Yeah, you talk about styles make fights, as they say oftentimes, and you look at Larkins set up there with McHugh probably playing as you say, third midfielder, come sweeper at times too. He'll have license, he'll be covering all that ground. It'd be interesting to see where Tynagh position the likes of Shane Maloney and Thomas Gordon. Are they going to try keep them out wide and hopefully kind of bypass McHugh in their deliveries in, or are they going to look and go straight over the top of them? A lot will come down to how Tynagh approach it. Really, you want to keep McHugh out of the game as best you can. So possibly spreading it out to the corners is the way to do that. And we mentioned the likes of Gordon and Maloney there. They're fellas that can do damage coming in from the flanks, So look, it's interesting to see how it goes. As I say, Tynagh have a big point to prove, but Larkins, they're hurling with such confidence. They've full understanding of what they're doing, and it just feels like they've continued on from where they left off last year, which is pretty hard to imagine is even possible given how long it's been since the end of last season. But the way they picked off the first weekend against Loughrea was savagely impressive, and yeah, I think they'll continue that vein of form here and get a win and eliminate Tynagh in the process.
Yeah, although I suppose a start, it's so cliched, but a good start, should I say? Excuse me. Is so important. Like in this, if Tynagh can get their noses in front early, and just then kind of keep ticking away, like Maloney can basically score from anywhere in Duggan Park. He back the last stage. He was shooting frees from inside his own 45, and they probably could have travelled another 10-15 meters if they wanted to. And if there's a breeze behind him at all, like the start would be massive in this, and just building a bit of confidence and putting maybe a bit of doubt in Tommy's as well. You know, are they capable of turning it around? Like, because they got their noses in front against Loughrea, and they never trailed. So it was they never trailed if they got the noses in front, should I say? So that could be vital for them. Tynagh, early start, maybe early goal. Maloney tags on, 4 or 5 points before half time. A couple of scores. Johnny Conroy tips in with a couple. You'd never know. As we've seen, Thomas Gordon the last day is always good for a goal. Killeen can dominate back there as well. Will he sit loose now with McHugh being loose at the far end, like, and the deliveries will be so important, or will they put a man marking maybe Flynn, or it's difficult to know, but tactically it'll be could be easily one on the line, you know what I mean, depending on who gets the better start and who set up the best relay.
Yeah, good stuff. And we move on. Secondly, then we've probably one of the heavyweight clashes of the weekend. Very, very near neighbours and very familiar opposition in Cappataggle against Loughrea. They're playing in Ballinasloe Sunday also at 5 o'clock. These two, of course, played twice last year, a win apiece. Cappataggle won the one that really counted in the quarter final, knocking out Loughrea and doing it fairly comfortably, it has to be said. Coming in this year, Cappataggle are the ones with all the momentum. Loughrea probably the ones with maybe a bit more hype behind them this year, but didn't show it as we mentioned against Tommy Larkins. So a lot riding for Loughrea here this weekend too.
Yeah, on that knockout game last year, my memory serves me correctly that Loughrea were winning it at half time, and I'd nearly say they were probably nearly the better team. Now I can't remember the score off the top of my head. I probably should have looked it up, but anyway. But as far as I know, it was kind of a second half capitulation from them, and they just didn't really show. And Cappy dominated proceedings, and were probably well worthy of that. What was it again? Say
18 to 14. Yeah.
10-point win. But as you said, there's probably been a bit of hype around Loughrea, and they really didn't deliver on the first day. Like, many expected them to be one of the real challengers for the competition this year. And a forward, if Jamie Ryan carried on his form from last year, and a few more young lads, they've some great young players there, like say Joe Mooney and Mark McManus and a few more, and Johnny Coney always have a chance as well. So keeper was a bit of an issue the last day for them, wet conditions, and I don't know, was it his first game in goal? Garage looked at, I can't. He's
a fella. He's a fella. He'd have been an underage rather. He would have played outfield and would have been a really quality outfield player underage, and has struggled with injuries and that over his career. But no, he's a converted keeper. His former Galway under 1 goalie, sure. But so no, far from his first rodeo, as they say. But certainly wasn't overly convincing in it the last day. But as I say, conditions were horrible for Hurling. Definitely, that's one factor that's important this weekend too. Loughrea, of the two, Loughrea would prefer a fine day. The style that they're trying to play now, the hurlers they have. Cappataggle can play it anyway. In fairness, they can play a fast, dynamic sort of a game, or they can play. They're well at home in a kind of a bruising battle as well, So of the two, certainly the weather will play a factor. Loughrea, as I say, will be hoping for fine weather. Get the likes of Jamie Ryan and Joe Mooney and Brian Keary, all these fellas, get them flying on low ball, But in Ballinasloe again, it's familiar. It's a familiar venue for both sides. There's nothing new in that. That's a 9 times out of 10 when they play, it's in Ballinasloe they play. So of the two, like Loughrea, they have so much improvement too from 2 weeks ago, and it has to come this week. There's no ifs or buts about it. They have to produce the goods this week. So based on that, I think there's a big performance in them. I think I have a notion they might just sneak this one.
Jeez, I don't. I think Cappy are too good, to be honest with you. just even on the last day, like they were without some big frontliners, and even at that, some players we didn't touch on where we're looking back at the match. Like I was very impressed with the likes of Garrett Dolan at centre forward. Jeez, he put in an enormous shift. He was everywhere. His work rate was through the roof, and you know what you're always going to get with the likes of James Egan as well. You know, he's constantly, he's a great outlet for the high ball, and he'll work no more than Dolan. Like they've such a hard working half forward line there. Alan Dolan then in midfield seems to have really suited him going out to midfield, that bit more time on the ball, and they're not as heavily reliant on him from scores either. And sure, he's deadly accurate from frees. And Banlaslow again, like, you know, it's not a huge ground, like you can score from nearly anywhere. But I think if it comes down to who wants it more, like Cappataggle probably would want it more. Despite this is a crazy thing to say. I know Loughrea need to get the result, like, but geez, if it's a dog fight, I throw my weight behind Cappataggle every day of the week anyway.
Certainly, yeah. No, hard to argue with that as well. Should be a hell of a game. You know, one. I think we're all really looking forward to tuning in on the streaming service. And of course, it's important to mention that this weekend we have 5 of the 6 Senior A matches are going to be streamed for us, which it's absolutely phenomenal. It's a brilliant service. You mentioned to me there before we came on air, David, the figures from the first weekend, and for, I suppose, we're including the football in that as well. But the figures and the feedback so far has been really good. And you probably expect that to carry on this weekend with a few real heavyweight clashes.
Yeah, as far as I was chatting to a reliable source, and they told me that I think between the first 2 weekends the figures were 4,500 subscribers. So
yeah,
Jesus, that's
brilliant.
You know, if everyone was kind of even contributing a $5 per, you know what I mean, or €6 or whatever, you're looking at 20,000 there straight away. And as far as I know, it's not costing Galway GA anything to run this, as in Namaton are putting it up, and then they're splitting the profits. So, you know, it's a nice boost to the coffers, and I can't imagine there's too many other counties generating as much money as that. Say, like, you know, it's a serious boost in difficult times. You know, it's something that'll be great. Like, it'll be good for cool camps and running other stuff, and, you know, down the line, and even for preparing inter-county teams in the future, which a lot of people are always giving out about the cost.
Yeah.
Like, it's in the millions now. It's you know, every penny helps, and I suppose, you know, if you can get that extra edge and, you know, the other inter-county teams, even if it's you know, questionable, you know, performance coach, or you can bring Dean Rock in for the freeze at €300 a pop or whatever it is. It could be that massive advantage, like. But on that, I'm looking forward to. I'm fierce excited to see this Niall Collins again. You know what I mean? Just to how good he was the last day. If you could back it up again now, and really, you know, if he could contribute a few points, like he could be a fella that could be on the radar there for a squad, like, even just to get a big experience maybe, and you could potentially see him next year in the Walsh Cup or something like that. You know, getting a run in the Walsh Cup, and you'd never know where he could take it from there.
For sure, yeah. One of those heavyweight games of the weekend that will probably draw in one of the biggest audiences is, of course, Oranmore-Maree taking on Turloughmore in Senior A Group 2. That takes place in Kenny Park at Tynagh on Saturday at 2:00. It's a clash of winners, first round winners. Oranmore-Maree beating Clarinbridge, and Turloughmore, of course, beating Mellows. 2 right good competitive games. Of course, this as we've already alluded to in previous shows, the group of death really in the senior championship this year. 2 winners here facing off, a bit of pressure at ease, having won their first game. But in saying that, whoever wins here the next day rather, can kind of rest easy, I suppose, going into the last weekend in comparison to the second team, who, you know, they'll have some battle on their hands still if they want to get through, you know.
I'll tell you one thing for sure, and I'd be very confident in that Oranmore won't physically bully Turlough like they did against Clarinbridge.
Yeah.
Turlough are a different animal. They're a strong seasoned team now at this point. Like, so, like we were kind of chatting beforehand, and it'll be interesting to see like who picks up Niall Burke. Like we mentioned it before, and you were wondering whether Dahi might go back there and sit. But I suppose they probably will. Or another option could be, you know, Sean Loftus wasn't exactly setting the world alight in attack either. Now he's a lovely hurler. Does he sit back behind, you know, sit in between the 2 lines, the full back line, the full back line and centre back, and kind of sweep there and maybe pick up loose ball? That could be another option. But truth be told, I'd imagine they'd go with Jamie Holland still, and see how it plays out. Like, Dahi's such a link player there in centre field, and he's just so tidy. He just keeps everything ticking over. Like, it's never anything hugely glamorous, but he gets through a Trojan amount of work. Like, and he's, I don't know. Maybe you think he could pick him up really, and if things aren't working, then maybe you could. It's likely to switch Dahi back, and probably Niall Burke he'd be hoping that Dahi won't sit back on him more than anything else really.
Yeah, absolutely.
You wouldn't want to. There's no one else that you choose anyone else probably in the county not to be marking other than Dahi Burke.
For sure, yeah. No, it's an interesting one because Niall Burke is he's such an essential figure in that Oranmore-Maree attack and the team as a whole. I don't know. It's like they've got Ronan Burke there, full back, who you could potentially see doing a job on Niall Burke in that he might stop him. He mightn't hit the ball himself, but he might stop Niall Burke to some degree, which is what you're looking for whoever's going out marking Niall Burke. You don't need them hitting 20 balls a game, which is something Jamie Holland does an awful lot of. He's a great striker of ball and a great man to put over a long range point from play or from frees and deliver ball. But is he necessarily the best man to go about stopping Niall Burke? I'm not so sure. I think Ronan Burke would be better fitted to doing that. But in saying that, by taking Ronan Burke out of full back, what are you losing by doing that as well? So it's a conundrum. I know what you're saying about Sean Loftus going back sweeping. I think that's something Turloughmore they don't want really to, like, if you play orthodox 15 aside, changing your whole system just for the sake of one fella and putting a lad back sweeping, I don't know. It's something that I don't think a team would do on a one-off basis because it's not something you can master in 2 weeks. I don't think it's something they'll do. What they will actually do, you've Kevin Hussey there, potentially a lad that could pick him up. He'll surely have cross paths with him in the Galway setup over the last year or two. Potentially a fella. Now Burke will obviously have the physical edge, but Hussey's he's as a halfback, you're well used to picking up and dealing with puck outs. It's about what he's given away in physical strength, he could make up for in cuteness and timing and these sort of things. So if it's something they could have worked on, surely you'd imagine, for whoever is going to pick up Niall Burke. But yeah, no, it will be interesting to see what approach they take there. We talked about the physical stakes there. Like, we know what Oranmore-Maree are going to bring to that, but I think Turloughmore are going to relish that challenge too. They're certainly going to front up to it. They're a big imposing team in their own right, and kind of Oranmore-Maree probably are after getting this reputation now after their performance against Clarinbridge that they're the kind of the dominant team physically in the competition. So I think Turloughmore will relish that chance of maybe taking that name tag off them. And yeah, like Oranmore-Maree, they were brilliant the last day, absolutely brilliant in fairness, and they now have to raise it another level if they want to beat Turloughmore. So that's a lot easier said than done. I think probably Turloughmore, the experience they have at this stage, and just what quality they have. Whatever they don't start, and they're going to be able to bring in off the bench then, serious talent. And as you mentioned, Matthew Keating's back available for them this week, which is going to be another boost. I reckon I think they'll just edge this one.
Yeah, I suppose another big battle we didn't really mention there would be Conor Walsh and Garrett McInerney as well. That should be another interesting battle on the opposite 40, we'll say. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out now, because Conor Walsh was fantastic the first day out, but Garrett McInerney is an altogether different proposition, say, than someone like Conor Elwood. He'll physically look to impose himself on Conor Walsh back there. It'll be interesting to see if Conor Walsh can cope with that. Just in terms of maybe in terms of tagging Niall Burke, you could see something like, say, Dahi just sitting a bit deeper and covering Holland sweeping a little bit in behind, and the two of them there should be able to cope with that as well. But it's a potential to be a serious duel, but the physicality just won't have the physical, Oranmore won't have the physical dominance they had the last day. You look all over Turlough's team, you just see physically imposing players everywhere. You've Kevin Hussey, Ronan Burke, Daniel Loftus is a strong player as well. Even in attack there, you have someone like Sean Lynn who's aggressive, but without going over the line, every ball he's hassling, he's harrying, he's quick, he's strong, he's able to score. who tags him is going to be another conundrum, because Oranmore, they were fantastic last day, and even their back line was first class, but there's just so many headaches all over the field this day. You saw the prospect of, say, Conor Walsh with Garage, but then you have Sean Linehan, or then you have Dahi, or then you have these lads, then you have Sean Loftus, say, who picks up these lads? They can all do so much damage all over the field. They're probably able to score maybe 5 to 15, if not even further back, if the chances come up.
For sure, yeah. So you're going with Turloughmore nailing your colours to the master.
Jesus, I'd love to plump for Oranmore again, but I seem to be always going for the opposite team. I don't know why. It's not that against them, but just this week against this week against Turlough, I just don't know. I just don't see them do it. And Turlough. Sorry, no. I'm going to say something else there. No, just Turlough should just have enough. They should be able to match them in the physical stakes, and probably maybe just have that slight bit more experience and quality all over. Yeah, good stuff. And then the second game, in many ways, perhaps the biggest game of the entire weekend. You have Mellows taking on Clarinbridge in Athenry at 6 o'clock on Saturday. We talked about two winners there a few minutes ago. These are two losers coming up against one another, and hard to believe that whoever should lose this weekend, their championship aspirations are at an end. You have two high quality teams who at the start of the year you would have said, these are definitely county semi-finalists at the very least, potentially. Now one of them's going to be gone, and such is the cutthroat nature of this championship. Absolutely. Now I'm going to name my colours to the nest here straight away, and I'm going to say, personal opinion is Mellows are going to win, and Mellows are going to go on and win their final game as well and come out. Now that's what I envision happening over the next few weeks, minus any big upset or sending off, or someone like Harron going off injured. Or I just think Mellows are just that bit more seasoned as well than the other two teams, and they have that bit of experience and quality as well. Tynagh Harron's form is going to be, who is TJ Brennan probably likely to pick up Tynagh Harron there? Do you think?
More than likely, I'd imagine.
More than likely. So that'll be a good battle, but if TJ Brennan can limit him to maybe a couple of points in play, he's halfway there. And if Clarinbridge can kind of cut down on the soft freeze, because Harron and laid them from everywhere. It's on in Kinney Park as well, so that'll be, you'd nearly say it suits. So I mean, that probably suits both teams really. And hopefully it's a good day, and we have a good quality action rather than Pearse Stadium where it's kind of a game of two halves, and you don't really know what's going to happen until the final whistle blows. But on this, it should be an even contest on the out, minus some strong breeze or something like that, I'd imagine. But, I think Mellows are going to do it, and I think they're going to beat Oranmore in the last round. Jeez, I'm giving Oranmore an awful every week. But I don't mean to if they were in any other group at all, I'd envisage them to come out, you know what I mean. But I just don't know. I don't see them winning this weekend, and I don't see them beating Mellows in the final round either. Now I could be in trouble now over around Oranmore-Maree. But anyway. Game more opinions, isn't it? You can rub it in.
Yeah, for sure.
It's incorrect.
For sure, yeah. No, looking at I was in the position where I've seen Clarinbridge, whereas Mellows you only see a bit on television, so it's different as well in what you see. And from what I did see of Clarinbridge, I think there's a lot more in them. And at times when they blitzed Oranmore-Maree in that first round. Now you could see, of course, you can say the same. That and in the periods where Oranmore-Maree they did the same to Clarinbridge, But I think in many ways, being out of the stadium now, as you say, it's an even playing field. You'd imagine, provided the weather is somewhat normal, it's going to be an even playing field for the full 60. They love Athenry. Clarinbridge love Athenry. Yeah. No question about that. They've picked up some brilliant wins there the last couple of years, and I'm just waiting for them to really catch fire. Because the potential is there. We all know the potential is there in them. Now they still have the same questions to answer. Have they got, can they change their approach if things aren't working out the way they weren't working in the first 20 minutes against Oranmore-Maree the last day? But they still don't have that target man as such in at 14 with Keane Salmon not back involved fully. But you've got players, attackers, the quality of Mikey Daly, Patrick Foley, who I'd imagine will probably go back to midfield this week. Was really grew into the game when he went back there the last day. Although still different game. He might be able to get on more ball at 11 and turn and have more space to run into. Whereas against Oranmore-Maree, he didn't have an opportunity, you know. So there's that element of it as well. And then of course you've, as we alluded to already, you've Hearn coming up against Evan Nyland, probably two of the best strikers of all in the entire county, and two of the top marksmen in the county as well. So whoever comes out on top of that in that battle may well be on the winning side at the end of it all. And I think I'm going to oppose you here as well. I think I'm going to go with Clarinbridge here. Changing of the guard, I think. I think Clarinbridge to sneak in here and then go into the last round against Turloughmore with it all to play for. Tell you, one of us is going to be very happy next week. Anyhow, I don't know what the other one.
One of us is going to make it on our faces this push. No, that could very easily happen. Like, and there's players in that Clarinbridge attack that you could see so much more out of, like Mark Kennedy, and you know there's a few more. Like, will they throw in Salmon this week? Like, I know he was warming up at some point in the first day out, and then Clarinbridge were kind of turning the tide, so they didn't use him. But
yeah.
Like, you just hope, like as you said, Clarinbridge though are well suited to Kenny Park, and they have some fantastic results there in recent years. And sure, they're nearly down. Thomas is there 2 years ago, but I suppose Teen Salmon was a huge part in that.
Huge part. Yeah,
huge part in that. Like Thomas just couldn't handle him at all. Now whether his hurling is up to scratch after being away, like no one. Like the little bit he's probably done in Dubai is probably not going to be up to.
Not worth a lot, I'd imagine.
No, but like if you could throw him on for 20 minutes and cause a headache back there, but Mellows have their defenders to cope as well. Like you'd have someone like Collins on him, Collins, which has been tried. Whether it's the same thing again now the next day, Collins would be shrewd. Like he'd, you do well to round David Collins back there. Like if anything, but. Like I suppose in the opposite sense, you'd have someone like Conor Kavanagh who's capable of a goal as well. Like he's well capable of scoring a goal in Kenny Park. He's had plenty in the last 2 years, and he's probably one of the best goal scorers in the county. Like do Clarinbridge have the goal threat? Like if it comes down to goals, I fancy probably Mellows to pick off that bit more, and maybe that could be the deciding factor. As you said, though, one of us is going to be wrong in the review show. So feel free to let us know and give us socks.
Yeah, you mentioned the trouble Thomas is the full backline Thomas had with Keen Salmon a couple of years ago. They had a bit of bother a couple of weeks ago as well against the 2-man inside Castlegar line. Are they going to have that sorted for this weekend against Sarsfields? They're out Friday night in Athenry at 7:00. Big clash, Thomas and Sarsfields, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a big clash now. If Joseph Cooney starts full forward for Sarsfields, like do you think that'll happen?
It's definitely something they could tease earlier on, isn't it? And lump a few balls straight on top of them. See if they get an edge eye.
So do Thomas's bring back Fenton Burke then? You know what I mean? To kind of try and match him for the physical stakes and just his power and quality in there. If it was personally me now, I don't have half the success of Kevin Lally. In fact, I have none whatsoever. So
none whatsoever.
You can read this with a pinch of salt. But if it was me, I'd probably throw Fenton back there because. Geez, I thought they looked fierce course against Castlegar, you still though. I do think Thomas have that bit more forward power than Sarsfields. Now I was impressed with Sarsfields the last day in attack. Like they've still plenty of scores and stuff like that. But I'd be very. I know it was probably against 14 men that he done most of the damage. But if Jeffrey Linsky or Jeffrey Lawless was to tick off 2-2, I'd be amazed unless something there was a serious malfunction back there. Like this question mark now. Cathal Burke is a player that I don't know. I actually don't know what the crack is. He was tagged the last day. Could he feature? Like he was outstanding last year at wing back there, and he could free up Fenton to sit back a bit further. Then it'll probably be a more orthodox game though. You'd imagine it'd be 15-on-15 this time round again. So like that'll suit Thomas's for their match winners because. In terms of Sarsfields, like you'd have maybe Darren Morrissey picking up Conor Cooney or something like that. Like then you have so many other headaches elsewhere. Like will Darragh Burke make it? But then you need someone to kind of tag along with David or James Regan. Even these lads, you've just even Brendan Farley. If he starts rushing Flannery, there's so many conundrums there for Eamon Cleary. Like what does he do or how does he try and limit them? I suppose Thomas's record against Sarsfields has been pretty good in recent years too. Like so, it's another one. So, but I suppose probably both teams will feel reasonably happy from the first round, won't they? I know
For sure, yeah.
Like a lot of us are talking up Portumna, but Sarsfields probably would have reckoned they would still went on and won it, regardless if the two Kennings they had a goal advantage, and you know they still have plenty to come. Like say, how do you see it playing out yourself?
Yeah, like Sarsfields, obviously Kevin Hines took up that role on Joe Canning 2 weeks ago, so you'd imagine there'll be something similar lined out for him there this weekend. He'll definitely be picking up one of the big names there. You know, these two teams met 2 years ago in the county semi-final. Thomas has won it. A right good game it was too. A really good county semi-final. Something that was county semi-final day, as we know, can often be one of the biggest letdowns of the calendar year in club hurling. But that was a right good game. And Sarsfields, like you'd say, Sarsfields probably have a better team now than they did then. Whereas maybe Thomas's, maybe they've kind of got the same sort of a team. I know you've the injection of a small bit of youth there with the likes of Evan Duggan and John Hayde and Oisin Flannery's obviously in there. This is his second year now as well, you know. But I think there's serious room for growth in this Sarsfields team. And saying that now, you're going out playing St Thomas's, and I'd imagine the couple of video analysis sessions done by Thomas's since that Castle game wouldn't have been too pretty for a few lads, you know, and in a few aspects of their play, you know. So I would expect them to sharpen up big time. I don't think they'll go out with the same full back line as they did the last day, you know, because that was, if they were beaten, that was the reason they would have lost the game, you know. They have the personnel to address it, which a lot of other teams don't. So oftentimes those teams, they'd have no choice but to go out with the same full back line, you know. But Thompson's, as we mentioned, they have the firepower there to address it. You know, taking Finton out of the half back line, if Cahill's fit to go back in or whatever it may be, great. But like, you could bring the likes of David Sherry out, bring Sean Skehill out to the wing, and they wouldn't lose a whole pile of firepower there either, you know.
That's
but
true.
Just to put Finton in there at full back and give them that presence in there, you know, I think it would change a lot for them, and it would help them an awful lot. And then they've such an abundance of talent up front that, you know, the Sarsfields could have so many fires to put out that maybe, you know, they just run a man or two short in certain positions. But you know, again, we could be in for a cracking game, and like we mentioned young Alex Kinnear there and John Cooney. Now these boys, they'll grow an awful lot from having that first game played under their belt, you know, and they should be better again this weekend, you know. And saying that, I think probably St Thomas's probably have a lot more questions to answer than Sarsfields from the first round, and I think they'll get the win here. Yeah, I'd
agree with that. Totally unbiased as well. So.
And then the second game, again another big game. It's a clash of losers. You've Portumna against Castlegar. The loser is going out of the championship, so they're meeting in Loughrea on Saturday at 2:00. Something I'd say Portumna would be happy enough to be going into Loughrea. Somewhere Castlegar probably don't actually play an awful lot.
No.
But that being said, you know, the only concern you'd have with Castlegar is, are they going to be able to raise it to the level they did the last day? Now, you can also say they won't need to raise it to quite the level they did the last day to beat Portumna. But still, Portumna are going out. They've nothing to lose here again this week. They're underdogs. They're expected to lose. They're expected to get relegated. And this is the game for them. I know, like, they're going to be without Jack. And we expect Joe to have his red card rescinded and to be back in harness for them. But this is the game for Portumna. Castlegar have aspirations of progressing from the group. Portumna, first and foremost, they want to survive. So for them, this is do or die stuff this weekend, as it is for both teams. But especially for Portumna, you know, this is the game they really want to target. If they lose this, I don't think they have a hope against St Thomas's in the last round. So yeah, no, a lot to look forward to there as well, you know.
Absolutely. I suppose Jack is such a big loss, isn't he? Really, like just for personnel alone. Like I think he sat back a little bit deeper in the second half before the sending off last day, and he was on a lot more ball and more heavily involved. The thing for Cashel will be, the question is, who are they going to stick on Joe? Like it's you know, will they just mark him and then put Sean Erie probably switching back a bit deeper again, or where will Joe be? But then you've Ronan O'Mara, like who's any day, geez, he could score 6, 7, 8, 9, 10,
Yeah.
11, 12, 13 points, 13 points in play. Like, so he'd be another one. Like, he gave Darren Morrissey real trouble the last day. Like, and there's going to be real question marks over who picks him up. You'd imagine it'll be Cappataggle, isn't it? Indeed, the Cashel fullback. So it'll probably be him v him, and who will pick up Joe? Then you'd wonder who was. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head who was centre back the last game.
I'd say Thomas, man. You could just pick him straight up. I'd imagine he's a fine club centre back. Big man, so it wouldn't be kind of out muscled or outweighed in that regard. Now, you know, still you're coming up against Joe Kenny, like, so you're going to be outweighed in other aspects. But no, like, yeah, I'd say if you have the cover of Sean Neary behind, you know, it gives Mannion a license to, you know, have a right cut, attack balls when they're coming at him, and just test himself out and test out Joe as well, and just have a right go at it. And as I say, you know, in many ways, O'Mara is nearly takes more marking because he's the lad he's really been firing for Portumna the last couple of years. He's been carrying them an awful lot because Joe has been injured, and certain days, you know, it just mightn't have happened. But O'Mara has been consistently very, very good for Portumna for the last couple of years now. So obviously they're the two main fellas to watch. And then up the other end, I suppose we're looking at Cashel's two-man inside line again. We know they're not going to change their approach. Why would you change an approach that worked so well against St Thomas's? You're going to have Oisin Connolly and Enda Concannon inside. Concannon he's definitely one of the best goal getters in club hurling in Galway. Yeah. Definitely, I'm sure of that. So the amount of games where he comes out with a goal to his name is just it's staggering. And the two of them working inside. Like we talked about how porous Portumna's defence could potentially be, and those could be the two guys again to really capitalise on it this week.
That's for sure. And then we haven't even mentioned the Ger Farrer, who just will not miss a free in Loughrea as well. Nearly every free is scoreable. And then you have someone like Dean Higgins, who seems to be right back into form, like the form he showed in the past, and he picked off 3 points in play against Thomas as well.
Yeah.
He'd be looking for a similar tally next time out, because he probably might get that extra bit of space there around midfield. It's still like Portumna and all. It's hard to go for them here, isn't it? Given how impressive Cashel were and how close they were to down the county champions.
Yeah,
I imagine we'd probably both be plumping for Cashel here. I'd imagine.
Yeah. No, absolutely, and rightly so. In fairness, on the evidence we've seen, you couldn't really argue anything other than a Cashel win here, and then sets them up all going well very nicely for a crack off Sarsfields in the final round, you know. But we'll get on to that another time. We'll move quickly on to Senior B, Group 1. We have a full round of fixtures in Group 1 to look forward to this weekend. First up, I suppose, the local derby of Kinvara facing Gort in Pearse Stadium on Sunday at 1 o'clock. Gort going in as heavy favourites. Based on what we saw against Cropwell last week, we were both quite impressed with what we saw from Gort, who, as suppose most people probably know, they were missing Aidan Hart, Jason Grealish, Silvio Glynn, and, you know, 3 mainstays in that team, and obviously Hart is one of the top hurlers in the county and indeed the country. So not easy to replace the likes of those coming up against Cropwell straight away, but they did it. And it was they were the ones that got caught late on. They were in the driving seat the last quarter. They were really impressive, having been behind for a lot of the game. Really, they got an early goal to go ahead from the penalty. Greg Laddie got a goal from a penalty, and that gave them an early lead. But after that, once Cropwell drew level, they kind of snuck ahead by a point or two, and 3 points they went ahead indeed. In the third quarter, but the final quarter it was all Gort. And they really finished out the game really strongly, and we're unlucky now. It was a brilliant point by Thomas Monaghan to sneak us off for Cropwell, as to be said. So I got to be very happy with how they went last week, and coming up against Kinvara, there's just as you say, like, you talk about Kinvara, you talk about Conor Whelan, and there's not a whole pile else to talk about. They have a lot of good hurlers, but they just Gort will have so many more threats. be it aerially from the likes of the two Mullinses or Ronan Burke, he hurled very well last week. His first championship game, kind of up that into the field. He'd be more used to hurling fullback, cornerback, that sort of thing. And then you've got the likes of Richie Cummins, who was flying last week. I thought, geez, he went really well. And Paddy Cummins as well, who made his debut last week and didn't do too badly either. So as we mentioned him with the likes of Alex Kinnear and John Cooney, Paddy Cummins will grow from that first game as well. So yeah, just hard to see anything other than a comfortable Gart win, to be fair.
That's for sure. And just in terms of like, Whelan would want to have the performance of all performances, because probably by and right, Gart are probably as close to a senior A team as you're going to get, and Kinvara are kind of probably relegation strugglers at this point already, which is sad to see. Like, as after the fairy tale campaign of last year, and you just need, like, it was probably the draw of, it was a horrible draw for them. Really, it wasn't. Just three teams that know them very well, so they were very unlikely to catch them with catch them on the hopper with any surprises, and especially the first two up, Ballinderry and Gart, who know them so well. Matty Murphy seems to have Gart flying as well, back to kind of performances of old. Now, I know Gart didn't score for 48 minutes, but we both said, somebody said to me, and I was chatting to them, and I said, I thought Gart were fierce suppressive, and he came back. I heard Gart didn't score for 48 minutes, but from play for 48 minutes, but they were still mightily impressive. Like, it's I thought that, and missing, as you alluded to earlier on, the frontliners as well. Like, so, like, Crofwell were basically at full strength, and they needed a moment of absolute genius from Thomas Monaghan to come away with a draw. So definitely there's room for improvement to Gart. You have Hart back, maybe you have Silvio Glynn, and you have, I think they've one of the strongest panels in the county. Like, they've some lads you can bring on there. Like, you have even Darren O'Donoghue, like, or Niall Ford came on, huge experience there as well, just to kind of settle things. Maybe he mightn't have a full game in him anymore. He was in my class in school, so he's approaching the industry. So maybe
you wouldn't have a full game in you for Thomas's, no?
Yes, I wouldn't have a full game now again. I don't know, without disrespecting anyone, I wouldn't have a full game. I'd say a 14-year-old up the back lawn, so it'd be yeah, but something that got to kind of change, like the advancement of Ronan Burke up the field. And someone we didn't speak on the last year was the performance of Gavin Lally. I was really impressed with him at full back on Hindi. Like, Jesus, he took like a duck to water outfield, because I hadn't actually ever seen him hurl outfield. Now winning the county, he's probably the option to come outfield a bit more, and he seems to be relishing it more than anything else. And then you have Jack Grealish there. Like, will Jack Grealish could Grealish pick up Whelan, or will they just leave Lally on him more than anything else? Like, it's just the threats all over are so they're many from Gart, aren't they? Like, Greg Lally just ran the show there in the last quarter. He got on some amount of ball, and his just distribution from deep is excellent. Like, you mentioned Richie Cummins, starting centre forward really suited him as well. Like, they had a couple more goals in them as well. I think Gerard O'Donoghue missed a gilt-edged chance. Now the keeper was out fairly quick to smother it, but he could have rattled it. And I think they had another goal chance. Whoever had it, it's eluding me at the moment now. I seem to be, but geez, they were mightily impressive. It's Gart all the way here, and sadly, it's Kinvara for survival. Unfortunately, it's the way things are, really, aren't they?
I'd expect Grealish to pick up Whelan. It's the obvious thing to do. They're two boys. They'll be good friends off the field. They would have been in school, obviously, in Gart together, but there'll be nothing friendly about things in Pearse Stadium.
No.
But you mentioned there about someone's talking about Gart going scoreless for 48 odd minutes or whatever, but like in the first half especially, there was 5 or 6 times where Gart got the run on Crofwell oftentimes straight from puckouts, and they were in behind the half back line, and they were taken out of it. No two ways about it. So there was clear scoring chances there, whereas when Crofwell they took a no nonsense approach, they took the boys straight out. There was a few heavy enough hits dished out in that first half. Jerry Dunn was a busy enough man now, so a lot of scores did come from frees from that way. Do you know what I mean? So I wouldn't read too much into that. I thought the attack worked quite well overall. And as I say, I'd expect a comfortable enough victory for Gart. Far more interesting maybe, and tougher to call in many ways. Crofwell obviously going to go in as favourites. Ballinderry, they're in the dream position really here, aren't they?
Yeah.
The Gart Crofwell result couldn't have gone any better for them. basically they have 2 bites of the cherry now. Win one, and Ballinderry they're through to the knockout stage of the senior championship. It's a great position to be in.
Oh Jesus, they definitely wouldn't have swapped it at the start. If you, as you were saying, if you could pick any result for the first day out, you'd have taken a draw from a Ballinderry perspective. As it just sets up the year for them now so well. One win beat the other two, and it's mathematically impossible to be caught. Like, so it's I suppose Cromwell were good. Like they had a range of different scorers. Jamie Ryan picked off points. Shane Dolan, Healy chipped in as well. Dean Cannon dropped out though, leaving 2 men inside. And as you, I think it was you that spotted first, the oceans of space just in front of the 2 men inside line of Dolan and Healy. But like it'll be interesting to see how Ballinderry maybe cope if they apply the same kind of thing. A couple of interesting battles, maybe the likes of Niall Cohen and Fergal Healy, the wily old fox against the young pretender, as they say. Like Niall Cohen, he was electric against Kinvara. Like it's if he brings the kind of the similar form, Fergal Healy left his hands full, and then you have Luke Prendergast and a bit more. It's Ballinderry are nicely set up for a shock here. Like it's fucking they've nothing to lose. They can get so important. It's such the same cliche. Get their noses in front, put a bit of doubt there. Make it a kind of a physical battling game. You'll have probably. I wonder, will Robbie Lane tag Niall Healy, or will he come out and maybe Thomas Monaghan or something like that this time round? Like it's a fierce interesting battle. Where it'll be won, it'll be interesting to see what Ballinderry probably do with the spare men, because you'd imagine Crowell would play kind of with a third midfielder. Dean Kennan will probably drop out around the middle third. And he'd a fair bit of joy the last day. Now, I thought they looked under a bit of pressure. You mentioned it early on, but when Gort ran at them and they got the run up there, and there was a couple of more scoring chances that could have looked more dangerous. Got forced to make maybe a bit tactical and cynical fouls that maybe a few years ago they might have had the legs. But Mark Horn was fierce impressive beginning. Gerard O'Halloran out around midfield. So I'd still probably go with Cromwell. It's terrible not to maybe give it, but I just think they have that bit more experience there again now. Ballinderry have nothing to lose, so Jesus, some opportunity for them.
It is, surely, it is, and you mentioned there the space that Cromwell create inside their half-hour line. The third midfielder and their half-hour line pulled out very deep as well, and often brought the Gort half-back line with them. In fairness, Greg Lally did sit to some degree, but the 2 wing-backs often came up very deep, but they didn't make the use out of it. I would have expected them to have more joy with Healy inside. And like, in fairness, like Gavin Eddy went well, but still, it's his first day playing fullback in senior county championship, coming up against who we believe to be probably the top forward in club hurling for the last decade. And it just didn't quite happen for Niall the last day. And Dolan, the same way, he had a tough task. Mark and Jack Grealish, obviously. But very impressed with Mark Owen at centre back. O'Halloran in midfield as well. He could be detailed to pick up somebody around there, maybe a Rylan or somebody like that, who's a very important component of that Ballinderry setup. Cromwell won't care one bit if Gerard O'Halloran doesn't strike a ball. He has that ability to totally nullify any of the top forwards in club hurling. So interesting to see what role he picks up. Overall, though, Cromwell probably have a bit more class about them. No pressure on Ballinderry; they're able to have a right cut at it. But I still think Cromwell will probably just have a bit too much for them.
Yeah, I'd agree with that entirely.
Yeah, good stuff. All right, moving on then to Group 2. With my own parish involved there. We're playing Bahag and Clarinbridge on Saturday evening at 6 o'clock in Pearse Stadium. We'd be familiar enough with each other, having played 2 years ago and 4 years ago. We played in Championship and drew both times. So look, we won't go out preaching draws straight away, but you wouldn't imagine there'd be much between the two teams again on Saturday evening.
No, absolutely not. And it's probably the pressure is probably a bit more on Clarinbridge than Yeek, because probably more is expected of them, from an outsider looking in. I'm sure whatever happens in your camp, you probably, you wouldn't fear anyone and stuff like that. But it was great to see performances like, say, someone like from Evan Hunt the last day. Like, I heard he was outstanding. Now, I didn't see the game, but by all accounts, he was outstanding in centre field. And great shining light, and you'd probably expect it maybe a small bit more from Adrian too. You know what I mean? He wasn't his usual dominant self. Like he's the capability of nearly winning a game on his own when he's on it. Like he can literally do it all. He can defend, he can attack, he can man mark if the needs be. Clarinbridge, they probably left it late against Ardrahan. They weren't overly impressive. Maybe I don't know. I didn't see it again, but just left it late. Like so. I suppose you'll have a bit of a headache yourselves. You know who picks up Kilconieron, who picks up Brian Burke. There's a few decisions to be made there, and I wouldn't expect to give away anything, but they probably would reckon they'd probably want a bit more from Brian Kilconieron this time out as well. Like that flight to Floating Road, I'd assume now without anything, you'd probably have to have someone kind of man marking him more than anything else. You know, someone detailed from the out. So it's a free bite of the cherry for yourselves again. Like, you know what I mean? Like you had a good result first time out, and now it's a matter of building on it. And no one is more likely to help you build on it than your own man, Brendan Gantley. Like we've said it so many times, but the word astute comes to mind every single time. Like so, Clarinbridge know you'll be set up well. They know they'll have it all to do. And you know, there's lads there like say Porrick Landers and lads like even Evan Hunt we mentioned already that'll thrive in Pearse Stadium. The open plains, like is it a place you played much in? Would you have many fixtures there?
No, played a whole lot, played Ballinderring there 2 years ago. That was my first time in there, certainly, and I'd say most lads really, I'd say it was, I don't know, could be about 7 or 8 years or more since we played there before then. But it's only a venue that teams have started playing again in the last few years, really. Clarinbridge, I'd say they've only been in there a couple of times the last few years as well, you know. So it's new to most teams, bar the likes of Mellows and Castlegar, teams like that, you know, they'd be more accustomed to it. But obviously Kilconieron and Brian Burke, they're the main men up there, you know, we all know that. Pearse McCann, we talked about it last week, did a brilliant job on Brian Kilconieron the last day. Look, if you can nullify him, it's obviously a serious bow on your arrow, you know. He's a top class forward, and on the days he does catch fire, he's probably unmarkable. You know, he's the ability off his left, especially, to just throw up the ball and drive it from nearly anywhere, and it'll just land over the bar on certain days. You know, and Brian Burke too, in fairness, went very well the last, hurled very well. He's moving very well. He struggled last year, as we mentioned, with injury, but back moving very well. And like this, they're probably. Yeah, we were happy with a lot of lads. You know, Evan Hunt he's a classy hurler, right? And he's a fella who, you know, if he stays hurling in that vein, you know, he never really got the chance. He was on underage panels up along. We never really got the chance come championship games to make a big impression. Which, you know, for us anyhow, looking at him every week training was a bit baffling, but. We obviously don't know what's going on behind closed doors in inter-county training, but certainly the last day he was brilliant, you know. Ado was he was quite enough by his own standards in challenge games. He'd been hitting the world of ball and really dominating at six, but just for whatever reason the last day just kind of bypassed him a bit, you know. I think 6 possessions was his total for the game, which he certainly wasn't too happy with afterwards anyhow, you know. So you'd obviously you'll be open for a big performance from him and from a few other lads, and hopefully we could, if we get over the line Sunday, you know, whoever gets over the line, you're in a great position. Clarinbridge, they're going to be qualified. We'd be well on the way. We wouldn't be there, but you'd be in a great position to head into the last round, you know. So it's going to be tight anyhow. I'll let you call it. I'm not calling it.
Do you know what? No, I'm going to say draw for the third time in 3 meetings. I just have this inkling that it's going to be a draw. I don't know why. There's a few lads we didn't mention there, just from your point of view, just to round off the match, just say a few the younger lads, young Keane there and Rosengrave as well. Like, so Conor Keane looks or Conor Keane looks a fine talent as well. Like, and you know, was it his point near the end that nearly won it for you, or was it off? So do you know, like, you've added another dimension, like between him, you know, Kevin Keehan, Joey Gantley, Landers, you have a fine attack there that'll rival, you know, anyone in senior B. No, like, you wouldn't get the same credit a lot of teams would, but Jesus, that like there's plenty of question marks for Gary Earls as to who was going to detail who, or what the crack is there. I wouldn't like to have to kind of come up with a plan to Markey, because I know full well you come out all guns blazing anyway, and you give them plenty of it. But Pearse Stadium again, you just don't know in there. Like it's such a weird venue. Like you could have a fucking 8 or 9 point lead at half time, and you could be bet 5 or 6 in the second half. It's just such a strange kind of venue. Like whoever copes with the conditions could do well, but I don't know why. Probably the price of the draw in the bookies would be 5-1, so have a rattle at that, I'd say.
And then earlier on the day on Saturday, then in the same venue, the 2 games were both on Pearse Stadium. 2 o'clock, Ardrahan against Tynagh. Huge game for Ardrahan, having lost the last day. They're the only team without any points in the group, so very important for them to come out and get a win this weekend for sure.
Yeah, where's Johnny? That's the big question. Where is Johnny? It's looking unlikely now he's going to feature by the sounds of things. There was reports around now. I don't know if they're from the best of sources, but that he played for Sligo football game at the weekend. So it's such a strange situation. It's kind of weird in a way. He was named in the squad and now he's not coming back, and it's just a curious situation. You'd love to know exactly what's going on. I was kind of fancying them until I kind of heard that he's probably not involved. So I don't know. It's Pearse Stadium. I think Tynagh are well suited to Pearse Stadium. They're a team of so many athletes all over the field. They can carry the ball from so far. Like you'd have attacking wing backs like Noel Keogh and a few more lads like that. It's just difficult to see. Two teams that probably feel that there's significant scope for improvement as well from the first day out. It's just interesting. Where will I just feel that Tynagh probably a small bit more up front, which has always been a question mark over them. I know Cian Fahey was very good the last day, but you've Keane Burke there, was just one of the top forwards in the county, and he can just pick off scores to beat the band. You'd be expecting in Pearse Stadium in particular him to finish with 10 plus points. And do Ardrahan have the same marksmen? Say, I know you were mentioning they missed a lot the last day from frees, which could come back to bite them. You'd want to be nailed and everything in this, and just for that reason, I'd probably go with Tynagh.
Yeah, I think Tynagh too, and I think they'll have been, certainly with the first half, they'll have been awful disappointed with their performance against us the last day. They were probably a bit flattered in many ways to be only 4 points behind at half time, and I'd say that if you asked them that, they'd say that themselves. We really kind of, I don't know if we cashed them necessarily, but certainly we surprised them with the intensity we brought to it. But yeah, I think coming into Pearse Stadium will definitely suit them. Ardrahan, too many of their forwards just didn't fire the last day, and they simply have to fire the next day. I'd imagine Iarla Tanya will probably go back up into the attack or midfield anyhow. I don't see the same designated man marking role as he had the last year on Brian Burke, so I'd imagine he'll push back forward, so he might give them more of an outlet on puck outs anyhow. But in Liam Ford and Cian Fahey, they have good ball winners there anyhow in the half forward line. I'd expect to see a lot more from Liam Ford this weekend. Another fella as well, Ross Albertini. I think he's a class hurler, and he got a great point the last day, but things didn't really happen for him. I'd imagine he'll have more of a say this week as well. But yeah, I just think Tynagh probably overall they're just have a bit more, and they're probably the ones that last year there was the good progression with them, and they were unlucky not to get to a county quarter final, and they'll have aspirations of they see themselves back on that big stage, and if they do, and if they genuinely see themselves getting back there, these are the kind of games you have to win, and I think they probably will.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, lovely. And then finally we move on to the last of the senior B groups. So we have Mullagh, Kilconieron, Leitrim, Pádraig Pearses and Ascar Fohana. So we've Pádraig Pearses taking on Mullagh this week. You've the most impressive team in the group taking on the least impressive team in the group based on the first round of games anyhow. Mullagh are going to be raging hot favourites going into this for sure. Probably one of the one of the hottest favourites of the weekend. And going into Loughrea, we talked about Clarinbridge loving that tonight, but by God, Mullagh love Loughrea, and I can't see them beating in there anyhow. I really can't. I just think Pearses are really struggling this year now, and Mullagh, they've gotten off to a great start. We'd mentioned before, are they going to back it up? It's set up nicely for them to back it up. They're playing the weakest team in the group, certainly, on what we've seen. And they're going into a venue that they love. Saturday 6 o'clock. Yeah, I can't see anything other than a Mullagh win here.
Yeah, I'd be the same. It's just on the back of the first round. You couldn't see anything but, and like Pearses have just kind of they've a lack of scoring forwards at the moment. That seems to. I think they scored 3 points in play the last year. No, they'd be expecting a bit more from the likes of Oisin Flannery and his Dean Riley, and even I think Tomas Flannery as well. Did he come on the last day? Like he should be fine. Yeah, he's a very good forward when things are going his way. But Jesus, they just problems all over the field as well. Like who's going to mark Davy Glennon, who's going to mark Dervin, who's going to mark there's just headaches all over. Like, and as you said, Mullagh were built for Loughrea, absolutely built for it. Like they're strong team, and they know it. Like it's nearly a home venue for them at this point. How many of their games are in Loughrea? You very rarely see them playing anywhere else unless they're playing some kind of city team or something like that. They might go to Ballinasloe occasionally, but Jesus, it's rare. For Pearses, Jesus, it's worrying times. Like you probably on the first round they'd already be nearly like in the back of their minds they'd be already eyeing up the Kilconieron game in the last round, and just maybe have a real cut at that, and maybe that's their survival game, and maybe that's the one they're target. No, they won't be going in like to lose either. Like, and you'd never know. But Jesus, just on the first round alone, it's full steam ahead. Mullagh, they're probably, if you were having a bet, if there were any kind of price at all, they'd probably be your nap at the weekend, because you'd imagine they'd start fairly. It's just the bookies. They struggle pricing some of these senior B teams, so it's a bit. To Wednesday morning when it comes out, if you can get Mullagh at any kind of decent price at all, you'll probably be backing them, to be honest with you.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah. And as you say, they go out this weekend, they win the game, they're through anyhow, and then they've a shot the week after for top spot in the group, to nail down top spot and progress on back up to senior A. So yeah, I think just that they've too much overall firepower. Obviously David Glennon's going to take serious stopping, and I don't know if there's anyone there that can stop him. And then there's more to them than that too, with Cathal Dervin and Keith Cohen did very well the last day. Ronan Glennon, Finney and Coon, they've a lot of quality up front, and just too much for Pearses, I think.
Yeah.
Then the second one, Kilconieron Leitrim against Ascough in Loughrea on Sunday at 5 o'clock. Harder to call, certainly. And personally, I think Kilconieron Leitrim, there was, while they were beating 8 points for a finish, 35 odd minutes that game was very good from them. They led Mullagh in Ballinasloe, and then for whatever reason, I don't know, the things just went horribly pear-shaped thereafter till the end, and they got wiped. Which, so you don't know which team, which half is more reflective of where Kilconieron Leitrim are. If it's the first half, they're well capable of beating Ascough and then beating Pearses and still progressing out of the group. But if it's the second half, they haven't a prayer. Like, they're going to be playing Pearses to survive in the group. So a lot of questions certainly to answer for Kilconieron Leitrim. On the other hand, Ascough things worked very, very well for them a couple of weeks ago with the changes, which we already alluded to, the Manions Pádraig pushing forward and Blaine going back the other way. Kilconieron Leitrim know what they're preparing for now. There's no Ascough aren't going to change anything there. Why would you? So Ascough are going to be going in confident, which is worth a lot. Kilconieron Leitrim won't be going in confident, certainly to the same degree anyhow. But I don't know, I have a sneaky feeling I think Kilconieron Leitrim might do them here.
Jeez, I'd be the opposite now. I just don't see it. It's like a spell of scoring, or was it conceding 1-10 to a pint? Wasn't
1-10 to a pint in 20 minutes.
That's that's fierce worrying. Like, I suppose they do possess plenty of quality, though. No more than themselves. You alluded to the two men who play him, but you have the likes of all the Mullagh, say for Kilconieron, Leitrim, and players like Beck Kinney, and a few more of these lads that are, that are game winners on their own. Like Brian Mullagh is a serious attacker in Galway club hurling, like, and he's probably one of the lads that you'll always have to. The problem is they probably can't be as bad as they were the last stage. No matter what, I can't imagine in that second half they can be possibly as bad. They'll divide up a Haskell. There's plenty of talk about a Haskell now. As you said, now is the time to back it up. Now, though, they kind of have to. They've 3 frontliners there, and they have a bit of quality all over as well. They have a few lads.
They do.
They have a few great young hurlers coming through as well, like a couple of Jew lads there as well that play a bit with Caltra. So they'll have no shortage of quality anyway. Probably, Jesus, it's a great opportunity for a Haskell, and
it's huge,
isn't it? What an opportunity! Like if they can win this game, they're basically through, and after that everything's a bonus. Imagine having a shot to beat Mullagh for Senior A. It's dream stuff for them, really. Like
absolutely.
It's something that you wouldn't have predicted at the start of the year, but the tactical changes seem to be reaping dividends. But now is the time to kind of nail down a stamp on the group and just at least make a knockout stage and go from there.
Yeah, so a bit of division in our predictions this week, so we'll see how that plays out. So, good that there's a bit of debate anyhow. We'll touch briefly on intermediate before we finish up. Group 1, there was a game played last weekend, of course, with Castlegar produced a huge surprise in beating Abinakmai. Of course, we mentioned already that some of the players Abinakmai are missing, the likes of Brian Flaherty, Caleb Mullery, obviously Trevor Mullins, fellas like that. So they're not the same team that got relegated last year. But in saying that, they were comfortable winners over Kilconieron week 1, but were well beaten last weekend by Castlegar, and that really throws the group wide open. If Kilconieron could manage to turn over Cylon this weekend, you'd be going into the final round with all 4 teams level on points. You could have fireworks then, But in saying that, still Cylon Kilconieron playing Saturday 6:00 in Ballinasloe. Cylon, I think they're on an upward trajectory, whereas Kilconieron still, I think they're still heading the wrong direction. And I think Cylon probably win that one alright.
Yeah, I'd agree with the same. I just think Cylon are a bit further down, and they have a quality player. They have lots of quality players, but one key quality player is Keelan Craven, who just looks a cut over a lot of people at intermediate grade.
Yeah.
He's outstanding, and he's physically impressive. Like he if you were to say he looks like a footballer, he looks like a footballer. He's
because he is a footballer.
Touche. Strong, powerful runner. Strong, powerful runner. And well able to hurl, well able to take frees, score from deep. Adrian Larner is another kind of player that he was missing last year for Cylon. He's been, anytime I've seen them play, he's been absolutely outstanding. I think he was midfield for their first out, and so between them two and a few more, like, is it Oranmore-Maree that featured as well? I think did he play a small bit for colleges this year, or last year, should I say? I suppose one thing in the first game that I already played, Kevin Keane was. He didn't start the first day for Castlegar against, and he came in and he scored 210 the last day, or
210,
210 and 2-2. That was from play, and he just, like, he's a seasoned player, and he's quality. Like when he's
quality baller,
the square, and he's just going to destroy. Like there's no one out there that wants to mark him. So I'd be the same. Cylon to beat Kilconieron. I just don't see Kilconieron having enough quality, to be honest with you. They were probably a bit lucky to be saved last year, but we won't go into that again. Cylon to win, advance, and could set up a real kind of real nail biting final day for a lot of teams, should I say?
For sure. Group 2, your own lads, David Athenry, you're playing Ardrahan on Sunday at 6:30 in Tuam Stadium, and first thing we'll just start off, we'll pass on our condolences to the Flaherty family and the whole club in Ardrahan on the sad passing of Enda last week. A man I had the pleasure of chatting to a nice bit last year around the time of the minor A final, and a really, really good Ardrahan man. Loved the club, and it was great chatting to him and dealing with him and kind of sorting a few interviews and that sort of thing. So just pass on our condolences to the Flaherty family and the whole club in Ardrahan. David, the game is going ahead as far as we know. a big weekend for both clubs. Obviously it'll be tinged with a huge sense of sadness, certainly with Carnmore this week. But as regards matters on the field, it's a big game for both teams, and you'll both be fancying a win and getting your campaign back on track.
For sure. Now the worry from our point of view is I'd expect to lose. We'd expect to probably lose one or two maybe to the seniors this year, because they only they only used one sub last time out.
Sub,
so we'd have a bit of question marks over a few other lads' fitness levels as well. So it's going to be a lot harder. Now, we played Carnmore in a challenge match way back before lockdown, and we were, I think we were well on top, and it was a desperate day. But we only played 45 minutes because the day was so bad. But we looked lively and impressive. So, but I'd imagine it's going to be a totally different game this time round. Something like this can galvanise a team. Something like this, a tragedy like this can galvanise a team, or it could just, emotionally, could be a bit too difficult to cope with, because it's going to be sore, like in Carnmore, and expected this week. Like, it's such a terrible tragedy overall, and I'd echo your sentiments there, like, and just wish all condolences in Carnmore. It's so hard to call. You just don't know. Like, Tuam is a fine stadium. Like, they have Castlegar,
the spiritual home of Galway Intermediate Hurling.
We've seen a few games there now, Hurling. It's a nice venue for it. Like, what I mean. So both teams would have been eyeing up this game, like, from the first time out. Like, we would have thought we might have give Kilconieron a rattle, but they were just far too strong and too far ahead of us than we'd ever would have thought it. So we'd give Carnmore a nicer rattle than, we were well in it with 15 minutes and just trying to cope with the water break. I'll put it out in the water break when it fell apart. Just I'd worry that maybe one or two of our lads missing could cause a bit of an upset. Like, we'd have some important players that would leave a hole between injuries and stuff like that, and we've a couple of lads that might be involved with Athenry. They could be playing soccer as well. They're in the FAI
Junior Cup semi-final, I think, isn't it?
So there's a couple of lads, the likes of Ryan Shaughnessy, who came on and scored a point against Kilconieron. If he's that's a worry there, like, way to Donahoo's aren't 100%, like, it's interesting. Naming
out the excuses anyhow, fair play to you.
I'm telling you now, Carnmore red hot favorites. We won't be beaten. I suppose the second game is probably the more interesting one, really, isn't it? Like, Spidler, they'll cause Kilconieron a completely different problem than we did. Like, we would have probably tried to out-hurl them, whereas Spidler tried to outplay them, or not tried to outplay them, probably tried to. They're a bit more running game with the ball, and
of course,
meaning coming from deep, and they've a couple of players there that could cause Kilconieron problems, but you'd imagine Kilconieron still have too much.
Yeah, and like, it comes back to, at the end of the day, on Spidgel, they're a dual club as well. This is their third week on the bounce, with football to come again next week and Hurling the week after. So it's non-stop for them, and there comes a point where that does catch up to you as well. And very impressive, in fairness, to give them their dues against Carnmore, put up a hell of a score, which is something that Kilconieron obviously they're going to have to watch out for. But you couldn't see anything other than a Kilconieron win, especially they're back in Athenry, where they'll be happy out playing as well. Kilconieron should win that comfortably enough, you'd imagine. Group 3, tough one to call. Ardrahan against Clymer, Saturday at 2:00 in Ballinasloe. Probably Clymer to edge it for me. Ardrahan, they're always capable of causing taking a scalp, and certainly posed plenty of problems for Turloughmore a couple of weeks ago, and then they still have the same issues. Probably don't have that many dual players either, in fairness must be said. I think there's a fairly clear cut, especially from the football side of things this year, that the kind of the freedom to roam between both squads isn't really there, as far as I know. So I think Clymer probably might have a bit too much for them there in that one. Yeah,
and it's probably doubtful. Maybe Comer might feature as well, particularly after losing the first game against Mountbellew, when I think it's Mike Cullen to come as well. So like that's a must-win game for them as well. So they'll be eyeing up that one. I'm still going to go with Ardrahan though. I kind of seen them a few times, and Niall Kinning he didn't shoot the lights out the first time out, but he's capable of racking up huge tallies, and someone like Peter Healy as well, who could just kind of run the show back there. He's hugely experienced, and I don't know. Maybe I'm a bit off reading it here now, as I haven't seen Anadown, but like Turloughmore were a good team nonetheless, and I think Anadown didn't disgrace themselves by any imagination first time out. I think Clarinbridge are missing a few as well, but I'd be right in saying that they're probably missing one or two first time out. Star maybe was one of the lads they were missing. I think they were missing was Conor Donnelly playing. Maybe I'm not sure now, but if they're missing them lads, they wouldn't have a huge panel to choose from either. No. So it's probably who can get their best team on the field, really, isn't it, on the day? And I'll chance Anadown, but tentative really to be truth be told.
Yeah, and then second game, Rahul Newcastle against Turloughmore, Sunday at 11:30 in Tuam Stadium. What an awful fixture, you have to say, in fairness. God, there should no way there should be a championship game played before 12 o'clock anyhow. But that's what Rahul Newcastle and Turloughmore face Sunday. You'd expect Turloughmore to pick up where they left off against Anadown and get another win there and head towards the top of the group, nailing their spot there.
Absolutely. Like, just on that as well, like, I don't understand why the game is at 11:30. Like, this, the second one is it's on Sunday. Like, so our game
Sunday at 6:30.
Our game is until 6:30. Like, so, like, geez, you know yourself, like, to probably be right for a championship game, like, for that, you've got to be up at 8 or 8:30 in the morning, like, and Jesus, some lads like to lie in, and by the time you reach, Rahul Newcastle, it's a bit of a trek. No, it's not massive by any stretch of the imagination, but it's a bit of a trek. It's to be there probably for 10:30, just to have everything right and set up. So you're 8, like, it's Turloughmore are good though. Like, they're probably just a level above Rahul Newcastle at the moment. And John Hanbury not playing either is just a huge blow for Rahul Newcastle. Like, he's just everything to them, really. Like, he's just the engine in midfield anytime I saw them playing, and they just don't have any overall top-notch quality without him playing. So fully echo Turloughmore, too strong. Killian Hurney, a few more lads like that to just run right, and just I'd see them winning, pulling up, really, to be honest with you.
Yeah. And then the final game, it's Moycullen against Kilbeakendy. That's in Group 4, Sunday at 5 o'clock in Athenry. This one interests me a small bit in that it's a county final for Kilbeakendy, isn't it? Moycullen are coming in. It's Moycullen's first championship game. Kilbeakendy have the benefit of having played Mullagh Aircourt already. I'd say they'd probably prefer if it was in Loughrea, all right. But look, going into Kenny Park, you have to deal with that. You can't change that. But no, it's set up for Kilbeakendy to perform anyhow. Whether they can beat Moycullen, that'll take fair doing, no doubt. And they'll need a few more goals, I'd imagine, because they don't tend to rack up big scores. So they'll need a couple of goals with whatever they do get, I'd imagine. But I don't think they'll win, but I think they'll put up a right good showing.
Oh, definitely. I think we've mentioned it countless times already. Like, I've seen Kilbeakendy in the challenge game, and they were mightily impressive. And I didn't see them last time out. I know it was a bit of a smash and grab towards the end, but Jesus, it's still a super result for them. Like, with someone like Indy Egan, he's top notch at that level, really. They're well set up and everything, but Jesus, just Moycullen, like, they were good the last couple of years, and now they've added, say, Davern from the minors and Cunningham there as well. Like, they're just add another couple of strings to their bow, and then you've someone like Ian Anoon there as well, who's just an outrageous intermediate player. He's just first class. Like, I think he could even be centre back this year. That's given the options they have. Like, now I could be wrong in that as well, but you'd like, just kind of for a fairy tale sense, and probably you'd like to see Kilbeakendy being still in it with 10 minutes to go, but no, I just think Moycullen have too much firepower and just, again, too much quality. I still think Kilbeakendy will have no problem keeping their status this year. I think there's teams that are a lot worse off than them now, and so that's probably like when they got that draw from hell, really. Like, you look in the other groups and they feel like they'd have give a rattle in any of them. And just very unfortunate timing for them, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. All right. Well, that's where we'll wrap it up there, David. I will leave it there for this week. Hope you enjoy the show and enjoy the weekend's hurling, because we definitely will. I'm in Pearse Stadium on Sunday for the Senior B doubleheader there with Gort Canberra and Crockwell Banderine. I don't know, do you know where you are yet, David?
I'm doing the game on Friday anyway, Thomas's and Sarsfields, so I'll probably be stationed somewhere else after that, so I'm not sure, but yeah.
Good stuff. So we'll take in all the games over the weekend anyhow and bring them reports back to you next week. So until then, God bless.
Good luck.